Okay, this is Mike Soares, Soraci Tenor Guitars. I get a lot of customers ask me about installing pickups on archtop guitars, mostly old Harmonies, Ks, and even some acoustic archtop Gibson guitars, about adding a pickup to one that doesn't have one. And so I thought I'd show you what I do on my new guitars. We have these made as acoustics, and we electrify them here. First thing to say is what we do is we make a oversized pickup hole in the guitars with a oversized plate. We like to do this so that we have the room to move the pickup around and line it up with the neck. Okay, you see a lot of new guitars where the pickup poles don't line up. If you're going to use like a P90 or something, you want it to line up with the strings on the neck. What we do here is we router out the hole, and what we add to this is, I don't know if you can see it, is a 5/16 dowel that we add from the back to the front. We make this so that it's just snug underneath the middle of the top here where the pickup hole is, and we glue it into place. That's just to support the top. To be honest, you don't really need it. A lot of customers are worried about the fact that they have to cut their bracing. You will have to cut your bracing on 95% of these jobs in order to add a pickup to an acoustic archtop, especially an old Harmony or K. So we just add that extra little support the top. It doesn't affect the main belly, which is this section in here, so you're not going to lose any tone. It's not like making it into a semi-acoustic. So what we do is we add that little brace in there. Another thing you want to do is any little pieces of chipped wood in here, you want to get a file in here or sandpaper, and you want to sand that away because that can give you a buzz. Okay, so that's our first step that we do. And another thing that you want to do is whenever you're doing adding a pickup to a guitar, test your pickup first. Hook your pickup directly onto a jack into your amplifier and make sure your pickup works. There's a lot of stuff coming out of China today, and the stuff just doesn't work. So that's the first part of it. Okay, and now the second part of this is going to be drilling for the electronics. And what we did was we taped the pickup into place. We set this one up so we have our bridge, everything is set up. We know where we can put our volume and tone and jack. And what we like to do on this is we like to keep the volume and the tone below the bridge, so as you're playing, your hand doesn't hit it. And this will also have a pick guard on it. So we're going to concentrate on below the bridge. Okay, and what we do here is we take some blue tape and we mark our top. Here we're going to go about in the center of this blue tape, and then we're going to follow this line straight down off the side, again with the blue tape, like this here. Okay, and what we're going to do with this is we're going to drill a large hole here that the jack will fit through, a hole a little bigger than an inch. I'm not exactly sure the size that we make, but we're going to drill a nice big hole here, and the reason for that is so that we can work the volume and tone into the body from this point. Sometimes if the F-holes are big enough, you can reach around and get your fingers in there. I got very big fingers, but I have these pliers here, these nice long pliers that can get in there, and we can get the volume and the tone. I'm also going to show you another way that we do this, but this is our first step in installing electronics into a acoustic. Okay, and what we did here was we marked off where our components are going to be your volume, tone, and your side jack. We drilled a little pilot hole on each one, so you're drilled, you don't have to worry about your drill drifting on you. We're going to use a 500K A and B pot on here. These are 18 millimeter, which I recommend for an arch top because you don't know how deep the top is going to be. We usually use like a 15, but in this case we also use the 18s. These happen to be 18s, and what we're going to do here is we're going to use a step bit on this here. Have them a little bit bigger so it's easier to get your pots in from the inside. And then what we do is we use this to the side. And then we come in with a bigger size for the jack. Check this to make sure our jack is going to fit through the hole, and that's fine. Okay, so that takes care of that step. Okay, now we got our holes drilled. What we like to do is we took, this is a Dremel sander, 1/2 inch disc wheel. We epoxied this into a 1/8 inch inside brass tubing, and then we added another brass tubing inside of that to support it so that when you put it on the drill it doesn't wobble and bend at the bottom. Gives it a little more strength, because you're going to wind up with little chips on the inside here. So what we like to do, we take this little tool here and nice and easy go inside on the other side of the holes that you just drilled. And sand away all those little chips inside, and the same thing around here. Get rid of all those little chips and pieces of wood that are sticking out so that you don't get any buzzing from them. Okay. And then we take our B pot is the volume, and the A pot is your tone. Okay, we're back to this here. What we did on here was we sanded or filed. You can sand or file the back of your pots. You want to remove any silicone or anything from when they were stamped out so that your solder sticks. And also we sanded down the lugs down to the bare metal. So your lugs and the back of your pots are sanded down. Now we like to clean all our switches before we do an install. Sometimes you do that and you still wind up with a bad pot. We've used different CRC electronic cleaner. We don't find this to be that good. We've used different cleaners from Radio Shack. We've been doing this for 40 years. But we've tried all different kinds of cleaners. We've used WD-40, which actually is not bad. We found the best one, though, is the CRC Mass Airflow Sensor Cleaner. You get this at a automotive shop. Again, this is Mass Airflow Sensor Cleaner. It's like $8 a can. Lasts you forever. Cleans the pots nice, and we find that does the best job on your pots. What we did here was we stripped your wire back. Normally you would take your hot lead, your positive, and connect another wire to it to run to your tone, but in this case we had enough wire. We just stripped the wire back, and we're going to run this through the first lug. Be very careful, and you want to look for little hair wires that may have broken off or have come through that could cause a short. You want your wires nice and clean at the lugs. In this case, we loop it around and make a little knot here, and bring these two up. We like to do is sometimes we use a vice grips. Come in very handy to hold. Put your soldering in place. You could do this off the guitar if you want. We've been doing this for a long time. We do it right on the guitar. Okay, we've got our solder, and we want to bring our wires back way, and hopefully our soldering iron is ready. Okay, and you might get a little melt back on these wires here. It's common, but you want to make sure you close that little hole in the lug. And this here, again, this is your hot lead coming off your pickup. Looking at your lugs here, you want to use your left lug. Okay. Now going over to your tone on this here. This is the wire coming off the left lug. You want this to go to the right lug. Now you can use the left lug on this here. On this here, you're only going to use two lugs: the middle, the right, or the left. The only difference this is going to make now is which way is tone for bass and which one is treble. So if you want it to go the other way, you just use the other side, the other lug. So on this here, you can use the right or the left lug for your tone. I always use the right lug for this here. And again, put the wires out of the way, and we're going to come in. Close that little hole off, make sure you got a good solder connection onto there. Now, something that we do that's a little bit different than most other makers is we use for guitar, we use a .047 tone cap. Most guitars use a .22. Basses use a .27, a .47 rather. We like to use 47. We feel it gives you more bottom end, better tone. We make a lot of tenors, and we feel that the .047s work a lot better on the tenor guitars. So This goes to the metal lug, whether you use the right or left lug for your tone or for your hot. Doesn't matter. For the capacitor, you're always going to use your center lug. Yeah, we'll solder this until that hole is closed up. Let the solder cool down. We're going to nip that extra wire off. And again, at this point, we're going to check that there's no little hairs or wires coming off of that hot lead that could short out. And you could bend these lugs down. We're going to bring this up and around and onto your ground, onto the back of your pot here. And again, we're going to take advantage of this longer wire that we have here, and we're going to go and use that wire instead of adding one on. But for your jack, we're going to add on this ribbon wire here. We're going to go with the green for the ground. And what we do is when we cut this, we take a little bit of the plastic off and we twist them as we pull it off. So twist your wires again so you don't have those hairs sticking out. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take the two grounds and we're going to give this a nice twist. Now, lots of times these wires, they like to jump around as you're soldering them. What we found is that if you use a screwdriver to hold your wire in place as you're soldering, the solder won't stick to the screwdriver. So in this case here, we're going to go get a nice ground. You want to stay away from the end here where your hot is. You don't want to melt your ground. And again, on this we want to get a nice bead. Oops, drop my screwdriver. Yeah, popped off. Wires here, we're going to hold this down for a couple of seconds, let the solder cool off. Okay, ground. Try to keep your wires straight and out of the way. Here, this is your hot wire going to your jack. middle, we want to do this one first. Around, make sure there's no little loose hairs coming out. Copper wire. Wire it down to the lug. Okay, so again, we got your hot wire from your pickup coming into your left lug. The middle lug is going to your hot on your jack, and then you got your ground wire going into your tone. You've got the hot wire coming into the left side, left lug. Your tone capacitor on the center. You're not using the right lug on this here. Middle, you're not using the left on this here. Okay, now we're going to come around again, get the wires out of the way. Okay, now, again, you gotta watch these little wires. Again, you got a little wire that's hanging off here. You want to get rid of that. It doesn't short anything out. Make sure that's in. Solder cool. So again, this is the left lug is your hot, your middle is your hot going to your jack, and then you have a ground. You want to make sure your ground is well seated. We're going to take a bit of that wire that we stripped off before, the covering. To insulate the ground. Come around back here to the other side of your tone capacitor. Give that a couple of wraps. cool. Okay, we got everything soldered except for the jack. We want to test everything out first, so we hook up a jack. We just strip the wires on there. We want to make sure everything is working. Now you're going to get a little noise here and there because your jack is not soldered yet, but you want to check. Again, make sure no crackle. Make sure your tone and your pot are working properly before you go any further, before you go in and install everything. Now, we have two ways. One way sometimes people used to order harnesses from us and stuff, and we found that this was an easy way for a novice to put in their controls. This is a shrink tubing that's a little bigger than your, I guess this is an 1/8 inch or 16th inch skewer. Not sure. I've never measured them, but yeah, it's 1/8 inch skewer, and we cut a piece about 1 inch or the size of the pot, and what we do is we epoxy this, or hot glue, epoxy was better, right to the back of the pot and let that dry. We do one on each pot. Then later on, when you're putting it together, you can run your skewer up through your F-hole, bring your pots out through your F-hole, down and through the pickup hole, up into your F-hole, and with the pot connected to the heat shrink, run your skewer through there, use a cigarette lighter or a match. This will shrink down onto the tubing. I have a lighter here. Give you an idea. Yeah. And just heat that, and that'll hold it enough where you could actually pull your pot in through your F-hole and place it up into the hole and put your nut on there, and then when you're finished with it, you can slide the skewer out and your pots are installed. I'm gonna see if I can do my basic setup. How I do it is I use these long pliers. Sometimes I'm able to get the volume do it. Again, you can use these skewers. Okay, just loosely for now. You don't have to. 18 gives you a nice room. I usually use a 15. Brings it down a little closer. Get this down past your first part of your thread. Bring your tone in. In this case, we should be able to grab the tone with these long needle nose. It always works better when you're not recording, but Okay, it usually goes a lot smoother than that, but I got it. Okay, washer on there. There's the nut. Grab the top. Get your nut threaded, and then the jack is fairly easy to get through. Except for when you're recording, and it's hard. Okay. There's your jack, and then you're going to want to shorten that up. But the first thing you want to do is tighten up your pots. Snug. Now you gotta watch out. Sometimes if you over tighten your pots, what happens is the top of the pot will actually dome up and bring the blade away from the pot. Check it and tighten them up. Okay, there your pots, and then you would go and I would cut this off about 4 inches, resolder the jack plug on there, and put on my side piece. Again, we make our own little custom side pieces. This here to match all the tortoise that's on our guitars, and that will go onto the side there. But that's your basic hookup. Again, the main thing about this is people are worried about cutting through their braces on an archtop guitar. The golden rule for wood is 2 years. Your guitar is over 2 years old, the wood is more or less set. Even if it's a plywood top, the wood is more or less set in place. The only time I've seen a wood that will react after 20-30 years would be a Martin or a Gibson with a mahogany neck that will react with the truss rod. I've seen bad necks straighten out perfectly on Martins and Gibsons, but these old Harmony Ks and the ones with the truss rod, if they're maple neck, if they're bent, the thing to do is to take off your frets, plane your fretboard, put a new fretboard on top, and then refret it. Biggest problem I've seen over the years with Harmonies, Ks, guitars like that is not so much the neck. When the necks are down and the bridges are down low, is because this block inside has broken loose the hide glue, and that block inside needs to be re-glued. But again, it's no problem putting a pickup on an old archtop guitar. Put that extra little brace in there if it makes you comfortable. You really don't need it. I've done hundreds without it, and they've gone through the years fine. But you want to put a pickup on an acoustic archtop, you're going to have to cut those braces. Again, this is Mike Soares at Soares Tenor Guitars. Thank you.